Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Drifting Pen. Thanks for joining me. It is the 8th episode of this podcast. We're going to draw something that is related to the 8th episode. For this class, you'll need a pencil, a pen. Any pen will do. I'm using a Sakura Micron 01 black pen, paper, or a white squared Zentangle tile. You might also want a tortillon or something to blend the graphite with. So let's get started drawing. You can take your tile or your paper and just provide a moment of gratitude for the paper, for the time for yourself, whatever it may be. And let's draw our string. The string is going to start with an orb in the center, and that orb is a little bit smaller than a US quarter, or about the size of a Euro 20-cent coin. And then draw another orb that fills up most of the tile. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edges, and it goes around that center orb. So you have a donut on your tile. Okay, that's it for the pencil for now. Let's move on. And pick up your pen. And we can pick anywhere in this donut to draw. We're going to draw on the inside or on the donut part, not the donut hole. And we're going to draw a tangle by Sandra Strait, and it's called 88s. And I thought this would be a nice tangle for episode number 8. And all we're doing are drawing 8s. It's a great tangle, super easy. All we're going to do is draw an 8 from that inner circle, that inner orb, to the edge of the outer orb. And then turn the tile and draw another 8 right next to that one. They don't have to touch. They can be a little bit away from each other. You can have some space between them if you like. Or they can be touching. Whatever your pen draws. So continue drawing these 8s all around this donut shape, reaching from the center orb to the outer orb. So we're making a donut of 8s, and maybe those 8s touch each other, maybe they don't. I think it's best to just not think about it and draw your 8s, and wherever they land, they land. They don't have to be perfectly next to each other or not, because in the final composition, you won't even notice. Okay, so now that you have your 8s down, we're going to draw auras around those 8s. So pick an 8 and simply draw an aura, a thin aura, around the entire 8, turning the tile as you go. And once you've done one, move to the next one. And if the aura touches the neighboring 8, then just use your holly-ball trick and draw under that neighboring 8. Remembering to breathe as you go, a light hold on the pen. And just drawing auras around that 8 shape or infinity shape. And if that aura meets the neighboring 8, just draw underneath. Keep going at your own pace. Remembering you can always pause and come back if you need more time. Okay, so now we have the auras down. We're going to draw more auras. Okay, now we're going to aura the spaces between the eights. And we're going to fill those spaces created by the auras. So you can decide how thin or how far away from the eights you want to be. But we're just going to aura that space between the eights. And they're all going to be different. I think that's the neat part of this. Each space you're auraing between the eights, and even at the bottom part of the eights where they probably are not connected, right, on the outer edge of the larger orb, you can just complete that shape as you come around. Taking your time. And again, not thinking too much about how far apart that aura is, but just drawing a shape that mimics the shape between a pair of eights. Okay, so now we have that. We have one more aura to create, and we're going to aura inside that center circle. So at the edge of where all the eights come together, we're going to aura that, and yours might end up being like a multi-pointed star. At least mine is. Okay. So now let's fill those shapes we created with the auras with tipple. I'm going to start in the center, and you can follow me with drawing tipple in the center, or you can, of course, fill this with any tangle or any method of drawing tipple as you like. For the center, I'm going to treat this kind of like the center of a flower, and I'm going to draw a bigger orb somewhat in the center of that space, and then I'm going to surround that larger orb with smaller orbs. And maybe you don't have enough space for this, and that's fine. You can just fill it with orbs. But if you have enough space, you can create that bigger orb and then draw smaller orbs around that bigger orb, and then fill in the rest of the space with even smaller orbs. I only have enough space for another layer of orbs. Keep turning the tile as you go. And now that that's done, let's fill those shapes that we created with our auras between the eights, also with tipple. This is probably going to take a little while. So I'm going to make an edit here, come back with a tile full of orbs, and you can hit pause if you like, or just keep listening and then rewind and come back when you're ready to move on to the next part. Okay, so I'm back. I've got my spaces filled with tipple, and now we just need to address these eights. And we're going to start by adding some drama, by adding some line weight to the inside curves of our eights. And starting with the top portion of the eights, or the portion that is closer to the outside orb, I'm going to just draw a mini aura of that curve of the eight, and then fill it in with black. And then on the other side of the 8, the part that is closer to the inner orb, I'm going to add line weighting to the opposite side of that 8. And I'm going to continue that with all of my 8s, adding a thicker line, almost like a crescent moon, very thin crescent moon, that auras, that shape on that upper half of the 8, and then doing the same thing on the lower half of that 8 on the opposite side. I hope that makes sense. If not, you just do whatever feels intuitive to you. We're just adding some drama, adding a little bit of black, making those 8s pop out just a little bit more, making those lines a little bit thicker. And whatever you do on one 8, just repeat it throughout all of the 8s. Go ahead and keep going, and I'll come back when I'm finished. Okay, now I have added some line weight to my 8s. I hope you have done the same or something similar. And now we're going to fill these 8s with straight lines. So pick one of the 8s and draw a straight line that reaches from one side of the 8 to the other side, working our way from the top of the outer orb down to the inner orb. We're working perpendicular to the 8. Not, I guess this would be horizontal inside the 8. We're not working vertical. Of course, you can. I think it would look just as cool. I'm just drawing straight lines down the 8, turning the tile as you go, and maybe you can add a little sparkle as you go. Maybe the lines don't fully reach the outside edges of the 8. And again, I'll make an edit here and come back when I'm done. I'll see you in a bit. I'm back with our 8s filled, and that's it for drawing. Now let's pick up our pencil and start shading. Now I'm going to start shading our tipple shapes by running graphite along the inside edges of those shapes. And depending on how you like to shade, I like to shade and blend, shade and blend, shade and blend. But you might like to shade everything first, add some graphite down, and then blend. However you feel like you need to shade. Leaving a little bit of white in the center of those shapes. Okay, now that's done, and we're going to add a little bit of shade to the 8s. And the way I'm shading this today is to add graphite underneath the area that we added line weight. So you're going to have shading on opposite sides of those 8s. Of course, if you want to do something different with the shading, that is also fine. So I'm just adding graphite underneath the line weighting we added to the 8s. So we have some different shading going on. We have shading on opposite sides of those 8s, but it adds, I think, a cool effect. And continue that with all the 8s, taking your time. Okay, so now I have my shading, it's done, and I think I'm done here, at least for this episode. I encourage you though to fill the rest of the tile. For instance, in my practice tiles, and one tile I really liked was I added a tangle by Margaret Bremer called Chibukto. Chibukto? I think that's how it's pronounced, Chebucto. That is a very angular tangle, and I added that along the corners. And then I filled the rest of the tile with black, and that seemed to really make this little 8 composition pop. So feel free to do the same, or maybe make another one with different ideas. I'd love to see what you come up with. And yeah, thanks for drawing with me today. And until next time.